Jungle adventure begins. Man lost in deadly wilderness. The air was heavy, too heavy to breathe. Daniel Carter opened his eyes and saw only green. Leaves, vines, shadows moving between them. And then 2 glowing eyes staring at him. From the dark, the sound of a low growl cut through the silence. Something was watching. Something big. Something that didn't want him here. This was not a dream. This was the middle of nowhere. It had been only hours ago, or maybe a lifetime, when the small bush plane had torn through the clouds and then through the treetops. Metal screamed. Branches smashed against the windows. The world spun. When Daniel woke, the wreckage was all around him. Twisted wings, a broken propeller, and the smell of gasoline in the damp air. The radio was dead. No signal, no voice. Just the endless sound of the jungle breathing around him. A bird screamed overhead. Another answered from far away. Then, silence again. Daniel got to his feet, wincing at the pain in his shoulder. He looked at the broken fuselage. There was no chance of fixing it, no chance of waiting here. He needed water, food, shelter. But the jungle didn't feel empty. It felt alive, and not in a friendly way. Every step sank into mud and tangled roots. The air was hot and wet, like breathing through a wet cloth. Insects buzzed at his ears, brushed them away, and kept moving. A strange sound came from his right. Not the high chatter of monkeys or the hiss of snakes. It was slower, heavier, like something big shifting its weight. Daniel froze. He scanned the trees. Nothing. Then his eyes caught something. A trunk of a tree, and deep in its bark. 3 claw marks, long and curved, cutting into the wood. Like a knife, they were fresh. Still bleeding sap. His chest tightened. That was no monkey. That was no small predator. Something had marked this tree as its own. Daniel kept moving, slower now, careful where he stepped. The sun was almost gone, sinking behind the wall of leaves. Shadows stretched across the jungle floor. The cries of birds faded, replaced by a deep, strange rhythm. Breathing, or was it growling? Then the feeling hit him again. He wasn't alone. His skin prickled. Every instinct screamed for him to look back. He turned slowly. And there, in the branches above, shadow moved. It was fast, leaping from one branch to another. Too big for a monkey, too quiet for a man. He couldn't see its face, but he could feel its eyes on him, watching, measuring. Daniel's heart pounded. He stumbled backward until his heel caught a root, and he almost fell. The shadow froze high above him. Then, with impossible speed, it vanished deeper into the green. The jungle was silent again. Daniel stood there, breathing hard, knowing only one thing for certain. Something was hunting him, and it had just decided to let him live. Now Panther stalked, alone in the night jungle. The fire was small. Too small to keep the darkness back. Daniel sat close to it, staring into the flames. The jungle pressed in from all sides. The heat of the day was gone, replaced by a damp chill that made his skin crawl. Somewhere out there, in the black, something moved. A twig snapped. Leaves shifted. Daniel's eyes darted into the shadows, but he saw nothing. Then, that sound again. Low growl. It rolled through the night air like thunder far away. But this wasn't far. It was close. Too close. Hours earlier, after the shadow had vanished into the trees. Daniel had kept moving until his legs could carry him no further. He had found a small clearing, just wide enough for him to build a fire with broken branches and dry leaves. The flame wasn't much, but it was the only light he had, the only thing that made him feel a little safer. He told himself the fire would keep predators away, but deep inside he knew it might also show them exactly where he was. The jungle at night was different. During the day, it had been noise, endless noise, birds, insects, rustling leaves, but now it was quiet. In the jungle, silence was never good. Daniel stared into the blackness beyond the fire. Every shadow looked alive. Every shape seemed to move when he wasn't looking. Then he saw it. 2 pale points of light, low to the ground, not reflecting firelight, but glowing with their own cold-shined eyes. They blinked once. Then the growl came again. Daniel's mouth went dry. The creature stepped forward. Just enough for him to see it, a panther. Big, black, its body almost melting into the darkness. Its eyes burning like twin moons. It moved without a sound, circling the fire. Never breaking eye contact. Daniel's hand tightened around a thick branch. It was no weapon against something like this, but it was all he had. The panther stopped. Its head tilted slightly, as if curious. It didn't attack. It didn't run. It was waiting. Minutes passed. Daniel's heart wouldn't slow down. Then, from somewhere deeper in the jungle, came another sound. A roar, deep, loud, powerful enough to make the fire tremble. The panther's ears twitched. Its eyes narrowed. Daniel felt his stomach drop. That roar didn't belong to the panther. It was something bigger, much bigger. The panther turned its head toward the sound. And for the first time, Daniel saw something like unease in the big cat's stance. Another roar shook the trees. Leaves rained down from above. Birds burst into the sky, fleeing in panic. The panther backed away from the clearing, still keeping its gaze locked on Daniel. That then vanished into the shadows. Daniel was alone again. But now the silence felt heavier. He should have been relieved the panther was gone. But instead, the absence of those glowing eyes made his skin crawl even more, because whatever had made that roar was still out there, and it was coming closer. Daniel added more wood to the fire, flames crackling loudly in the quiet night. He told himself not to panic. Predators avoided fire. They avoided humans, at least. Most did. But this wasn't like any normal jungle. Every sound seemed wrong, every movement deliberate. Somewhere a branch snapped under heavy weight. Daniel turned his head slowly in the distance, beyond the light of the fire. Two much larger eyes glowed, golden, burning. Daniel froze. These eyes were higher off the ground, broader apart. They didn't blink. The shape moved closer, and with each step the ground seemed to shake. Then, the firelight caught its outline. Stripes, orange and black. A massive head with long, sharp whiskers and teeth like knives. A tiger. It stopped just at the edge of the fire's glow, tail swaying slowly from side to side. It didn't roar again. It didn't need to. Daniel didn't move. His mind screamed for him to run, but his body knew better. If he ran, he wouldn't get far. The tiger lowered its head slightly, studying him. The fire popped and hissed. The jungle waited then. Something shifted in the trees above. Fast, silent. The panther, it was back. Crouched on a thick branch directly above the tiger, its body tense, its eyes locked on the striped predator below. Daniel couldn't believe it. The two great cats, one in the trees, one on the ground. Both looking at him, and neither making a move. The tiger took a step forward. The panther's tail flicked once. The air felt electric, charged with something primal. Daniel realized the truth. He wasn't watching them. They were watching each other, and he was caught between them. The tiger's muscles tensed. The panther's claws gripped the branch. Daniel knew the fight could start any second, and when it did, he wouldn't survive it. Tiger appears. Jungle turns into a war zone. The air was thick, hot, heavy. Daniel didn't breathe. Couldn't breathe. The tiger's golden eyes locked on him. The panther's pale eyes glowed above. Both cats were still. But stillness didn't mean safety. It meant the moment before the storm. A single drop of rain fell from the leaves. It hit the fire with a hiss. The tiger's ear twitched. The panther's tail flicked once. Daniel knew the fight could happen any second. And when it started, he wouldn't have time to run. The tiger moved first. One step. Slow. Silent. The panther's muscles rippled, its claws curling tighter into the branch. Daniel felt his chest tighten. If the panther jumped, if the tiger lunged, he would be crushed between them. The tiger's eyes shifted not to the panther, but to the fire. It studied the flames almost as if weighing the risk. The panther let out a low, steady growl from above. The tiger's ears flattened, the growl deepened, rising into something more like thunder trapped in a throat. Daniel's skin prickled. The air felt like it would split. Then sound came from the jungle's edge, branches snapping, leaves shaking, like something big moving fast. The tiger turned its head slightly. The panther shifted position, its gaze flicking toward the noise. Daniel's mind raced. If there was another predator, the noise stopped. Silence again. That awful jungle silence. Then, sudden burst. A wild boar exploded out of the undergrowth, squealing, eyes wide with panic. It didn't even see Daniel. It didn't care. It was running from something else. The tiger moved like lightning. It launched forward, claws tearing into the ground. The boar didn't stand a chance. The panther didn't chase. It stayed above, watching. Daniel stumbled back from the fire as the tiger's teeth sank into its prey. The boar's cry was short, sharp, then gone. The tiger dragged the kill into the shadows, as the fire's glow swallowed by darkness. Daniel's hands shook. His heart pounded so hard it hurt. The panther dropped silently to the ground. It didn't look at the kill. It looked at Daniel. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Then, it turned and melted into the jungle. Daniel was alone again. The fire was low now, burning to embers. He threw more wood on it, trying to chase away the cold knot in his stomach, but he couldn't stop thinking. The tiger hadn't attacked him. Neither had the panther. Why? Hours passed. The jungle never truly slept. Far away, the tiger roared again. Closer, something moved through the tree's light. Quick steps. The panther, maybe. Daniel didn't know if it was following him, or leading him somewhere either. He knew he couldn't stay here. When the first light of dawn touched the leaves, Daniel started moving again. He followed the faint slope of the land, hoping it would lead to a stream. Water meant life. The ground was damp. His boots sank into soft earth. His clothes were still wet with sweat, and then he saw at another tree. More claw marks, deeper than before and on the ground beneath them. Paw prints, huge. Daniel crouched. The tracks were fresh, some from the tiger, some from the panther side. By side. That didn't make sense. Predators like that didn't share ground, unless a sudden rustle ahead made him freeze. Through the leaves, he saw a flicker of black fur. The panther again. It moved slowly, deliberately, looking back at him, then forward again like it wanted him to follow. Daniel hesitated. Following a predator was insane, but staying alone in this jungle was worse. He stepped forward. The panther didn't run. It walked ahead, slipping through the green like a shadow, and Daniel followed. Hours later, they reached a clearing. Air here felt different, cooler, quieter. At the center was something strange, stone, covered in moss, carved pillars half swallowed by the jungle. It looked old, older than anything Daniel had ever seen. A ruin. The panther stopped at the edge of the clearing. It didn't move closer. It just sat and watched him. Daniel stepped into the ruin. His boots crunched on cracked stone. There were carvings on the walls, animals, people, strange symbols. One carving made him stop, showed a man standing beside a panther, both facing a tiger. His heart pounded. This was no accident. A sound behind him made him spin. The panther was gone. The clearing was empty, but in the shadows of the trees, golden eyes glowed. The tiger, and it wasn't. Alone, man versus jungle, hunted by two deadly predators. The golden eyes didn't blink. They burned from the shadows. Daniel didn't move. Couldn't move. The tiger stood at the tree line, silent, massive. Its muscles shifted under striped fur. Then a second set of eyes appeared. Lower, narrower. The panther. Two predators. Both watching him. Daniel's breath came slow, shallow. If they attacked together, he wouldn't last a second. The tiger stepped forward. The panther stepped too, not toward him, but in a curve, as if circling. Daniel's heart hammered. He was the center of a silent hunt. The jungle was still, still, no birds. Only the sound of his own heartbeat in his ears. The tiger moved again, its paw pressed into the earth, so heavy the ground seemed to sigh beneath it. The panther's tail twitched, muscles tight. Daniel backed away slowly, his boots scraping stone. Behind him, the ruins wall. No escape that way. The tiger's gaze flicked to the panther. Something passed between them, silent, quick. Then, the panther melted back into the green, vanished. The tiger's eyes returned to Daniel. It came closer now. It's one step. Another. The space between them, shrinking like the jungle itself, was closing in. Daniel gripped a fallen branch. Useless. But his hands needed to hold something. The tiger's whiskers twitched. Its ears shifted at every tiny sound. It was listening. Then it stopped. Its head turned, looking past Daniel into the ruins. Daniel didn't know what it saw, and didn't want to find out. He stepped sideways, slow, quiet. But his heel hit something. Stone jar, half buried in moss. It tipped and rolled with a dull thud. The tiger's head snapped toward him again. Its eyes narrowed. Daniel's chest tightened. This was it. The tiger took one step. Two. Its muscles tensed for the final lunge. Then a deep growl rolled through the air. From above the panther, it dropped from the wall of the ruins, landing between Daniel and the tiger. Its fur bristled. Its growl turned into a hiss. The tiger's ears flattened. Its tail lashed the ground. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then the tiger lunged. The panther met it head-on. The air exploded with snarls and roars. Fur and claws flashed. Daniel staggered back, almost tripping over the moss-covered stones. The two great cats slammed into each other, rolling, striking, tearing. The jungle came alive with the sound. The fight wasn't wild chaos. It was controlled. Each move measured, each blow aimed to drive the other back. The tiger was stronger. The panther was faster. Daniel didn't wait to see which mattered. More he turned and ran. The ruin gave way to thick undergrowth. Vines caught. His arms' roots snatched at his boots, pushed through, his breath loud in his ears behind him. The roars faded. Or maybe they followed. He didn't dare stop to know. At last, he reached a small stream. The water was clear, running over smooth. Stones he knelt, drinking greedily. It was the first real water he'd had since the crash. The cold liquid steadied him. But only for a moment, because in the mud beside the stream were more paw prints fresh. He looked up, scanning the trees. Nothing, only the sound of the stream and the whisper of leaves. But the feeling was back. That heavy, invisible gaze. A branch creaked. Daniel turned too late. The panther stood there, just across the water. Its chest rose and fell fast, its fur streaked with dirt and fresh scratches. It had fought the tiger and lived. Daniel expected it to leap, but it did. It just stood there. Watching, then turned, walking upstream without a sound. Daniel stared after it. Choice was clear. Stay here, alone in the jungle, or follow the only creature that seemed to be keeping him alive. He followed. The stream twisted and narrowed, its vanishing into dense jungle. The panther moved like smoke, never slowing, never looking back. They passed more claw-marked trees, or prints in the mud, and once, half-eaten carcass of a deer. Fresh Daniel's stomach knotted. The tiger was near. The panther's ears twitched. At every sound, it was leading him. But it was also guarding him. From what? Daniel still didn't understand. The jungle grew darker, the air thicker. Every step felt like sinking deeper into another world. The stream ended at a wall of rock. At its base, a narrow opening, almost hidden by vines. The panther slipped inside without a pause. Daniel hesitated. The gap was barely wide enough for a man, but the sound behind him, a distant, rumbling growl, made the decision for him. He pushed through the vines into the dark. The air inside was cool, damp, smelled of earth. A cave. The panther waited in the shadows ahead, its eyes glowing faintly, and deep in the darkness, something else moved. Something bigger panther saves man from certain death. The darkness swallowed him. Daniel couldn't see more than a faint outline of the panther ahead. Its eyes glowed pale like twin moons in the black. Behind him, somewhere in the jungle, a roar rolled through the trees. Deep. Hungry, the tiger. Daniel's pulse raced. He didn't dare step back out into the open, but every instinct told him stepping deeper into the cave was just as dangerous. The panther moved without sound, slipping into the shadows like water. Daniel followed, slow, careful. The air was cool and damp. His footsteps echoed faintly. He could hear water dripping somewhere far inside. Then, faint scraping sound ahead. Daniel froze. The panther had stopped. Its head was low, its body tense from the dark ahead. Came a second sound. A slow, heavy breathing. Daniel's eyes adjusted. Shapes began to form in the blackness. Mound of rocks. No, not rocks. Bones. The smell hit him then. Sharp, sour, rotten. Predator's den. The breathing grew louder. Shadow moved. Daniel's stomach clenched. It wasn't the tiger. It was something smaller, but no less dangerous. A wildcat bigger. Then a leopard, thick with muscle, its fur striped differently than the tiger's. It was guarding something behind it. The panther stepped forward, growling low. The wildcat's ears flattened. Its tail lashed. Daniel couldn't move. He was trapped in the narrow space. No way around. No way out without passing one of them. The wildcat hissed. Ass! The panther answered with a snarl. The sound filled the cave. Bouncing off the walls, then the wildcat lunged. The two cats collided, a blur of fur and claws. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space snarls. The snap of jaws, the scrape of claws on stone. Daniel backed against the wall, shielding his head from flying dust and pebbles. The panther was faster, dodging strikes, countering with sharp swipes. The wildcat was relentless, forcing it back. Daniel's boot hit something. He looked down, a skeleton, human, long gone, half buried in dirt. His stomach turned. The fight raged on. Wildcat lunged again, jaws wide. The panther twisted, clamping its teeth into the side of its neck, forcing it down. The wildcat thrashed, then went still. The panther stepped back, chest heaving. Daniel's eyes shifted past the body of the wildcat and froze. Behind it, pressed against the back wall of the cave, was a small shape. A cub. Tiger cub. Its fur was still fluffy, its stripes. Pale, its big eyes stared at him, not with fear, but with curiosity. Daniel's mind raced. The tiger outside, the panther's strange behavior, the carvings in the ruin, it all connected in a way he didn't fully understand yet. The panther hadn't been hunting him, it had been leading him. Here the cub gave a small sound. Not quite a growl, not quite a mew. Daniel's chest tightened. He took a step forward, but the panther moved between him and the cub, its eyes locked on his. Not threatening, but warning. Daniel raised his hands slowly. I'm not here to hurt it, he whispered, though his voice barely carried in the cool air. The panther didn't move. Then, a sound from the cave entrance. Heavy steps. Slow, deliberate, the tiger. The panther turned sharply, its body lowering, tail twitching. Daniel's heart pounded. The tiger filled the cave mouth, massive and silent, its golden eyes locked on the panther. But behind it, faint light from the outside world flickered like the last hope of escape. The tiger stepped inside. The panther growled, low and steady. The cub gave a small cry from the back of the cave. The tiger froze. Its head turned toward the sound. Its eyes softened, just for a second, and Daniel realized. This was its cub, but the panther didn't back down. It stayed between the tiger and Daniel, muscles taut, ready to strike. The tiger's gaze shifted to him. Daniel felt like his blood turned to ice. It could kill him in less than a heartbeat, and yet, it didn't move. For a moment, the three of them stood in a strange, tense stillness. Man, panther, tiger. The cub's small noises filled the air like tiny drops of water in a storm. Then, the tiger stepped back. Slow, deliberate. It didn't take its eyes off Daniel until it slipped out into the light again. The panther stayed where it was. It didn't follow. It turned back to the cub, sniffed it once, then stepped away. Daniel didn't understand why, but he felt it in his gut. The panther had just saved him, not from the tiger, but from something else. He looked down at the cub again, blinked at him, then padded forward a few steps, sniffing his boot. Daniel almost smiled. Then he remembered this wasn't safety. This was just a pause in the danger. Outside, far away, another roar echoed through the jungle. Not the tiger. Something deeper. The panther's ears twitched. It looked toward the sound, then back at Daniel, and started walking toward the cave mouth. It looked back once, as if telling him to follow. Daniel glanced at the cub, then at the darkness beyond the cave. Whatever was out there wasn't finished with him yet, and somehow he knew the panther wasn't finished with him either. Lost Jungle Temple reveals ancient secret. Water dripped. One drop at a time, slow, steady. Daniel followed the panther out of the cave, each footstep sinking into damp moss. The tiger cub's tiny noises faded behind him until there was only the sound of leaves breathing in the wind. The panther didn't hurry. It walked ahead like it knew exactly where it was going, like it had been waiting for this moment. They moved deeper into the jungle. The air grew heavier. The light dimmed even though the sun was still high. Daniel felt it before he saw it. That strange pressure in the air, like standing in a place where time itself had stopped. A wall appeared through the trees. Not a cliff, stone, carved, swallowed by roots and vines. The panther stopped. It turned its head toward Daniel, holding his gaze for a long moment. Then it slipped into a gap between the roots. Daniel pushed through, the vines tugging at his arms. And then the jungle opened up, a courtyard. Broken pillars. Statues of animals standing watch, their stone eyes blind but unblinking. The place was silent, not jungle silent. Completely silent. Even the wind seemed to stop at the edges of the temple. Daniel stepped forward, his boots crunching over ancient stone tiles. The carvings on the walls were worn but still clear enough to read. Men and women standing beside great cats, hunting together, fighting enemies together, not as prey and predator, but as allies. A sound echoed not from the jungle, but from inside the temple itself. A deep, slow scrape, like stone moving on stone. Daniel froze. The panther padded forward into the shadows of the entrance. Its tail flicked once, as if to say, "Come inside." The air was cool and dry. The light came in thin, golden threads through cracks in the ceiling. Dust floated in them like tiny stars. The hall was long, and at its end, a massive stone door stood half open. Symbols covered it, spirals, paw prints, claw marks, and in the center, carving of a man with his hand resting on a panther's head. Daniel's fingertips brushed the stone. It was cold, too cold for the humid jungle. A shiver went through him. This place felt alive. The panther walked past him, slipping through the half-open door. Daniel followed, stopped dead. The room beyond was filled with statues, dozens of them, not just of animals, of people too. All standing in pairs, one human, one predator. Some had their hands joined. Some stood back to back, as if ready for battle. It was an army. Frozen in stone, in the center of the room stood an altar. On it lay something wrapped in rotting cloth. Long, thin. Daniel reached out, but the panther growled softly, not in threat, in warning then. A sound from outside, a low, rumbling growl, heavy footsteps on stone. Not the panther, the tiger. Something else. The panther moved to the doorway, ears flat. Daniel ducked behind one of the statues, his heart pounding. The sound came closer. A shadow stretched into the room, broad, muscular, with claws that scraped against the floor. It stepped inside. A jaguar, bigger than any Daniel had ever seen. Its eyes locked straight on the panther. The two predators stared at each other. No sound, no movement. Then the jaguar's gaze shifted and found Daniel. The air snapped. The jaguar lunged. The panther intercepted, their bodies crashing together, teeth and claws flashing in the dim light. Statues shook. Dust rained down from the ceiling. Daniel ducked lower, grabbing a broken spearhead from the floor. If the fight came his way, he would have to use it. The battle rolled across the room. The jaguar was heavier. The panther was faster. They tore at each other, knocking over ancient relics, smashing into stone legs of statues. One of the carvings split and fell, cracking the altar. The cloth on top unwrapped slightly, revealing metal underneath. A blade. Daniel's eyes locked on it, not rusted, still sharp, still shining. He reached for it. The jaguar slammed the panther into the altar. The blade skittered across the floor. Daniel grabbed it. The weight felt wrong in his hand, too light for its size, but the edge was perfect. Almost humming, the jaguar turned toward him, its lips peeled back. Teeth white against the dark, Daniel raised the blade. He didn't want to fight, but he had no choice. The panther lunged again, hitting the jaguar from the side. They crashed into the wall, stone cracking under the force. The jaguar twisted, trying to pin the panther. Daniel stepped in, driving the blade against the jaguar's flank. Not deep, just enough to make it roar and stumble back. It backed toward the door, eyes locked on him now. Then, with one last growl, it turned and vanished into the shadows. Silence filled the room again. Only the panther's breathing broke it. Daniel looked at the blade in his hand. He didn't know what it was, but he knew it mattered. The carvings, the statues, the feeling in the air. This temple wasn't just history. It was a warning. The panther stepped closer, eyes on the blade, then on him. Didn't growl. It didn't leave. It simply stood there, silent, as if waiting for what came next. And somewhere outside, far away, but getting closer, the tiger roared. Clash of shadows and stripes. The jungle was too quiet. Daniel had heard it before. The silence that comes when every living thing is holding its breath. Right before something terrible happens, the panther paced ahead, tail low, muscles tight under its black fur. It kept glancing over its shoulder, not at Daniel. But behind him, branches swayed above, not from the wind, from weight. Heavy weight? Daniel gripped the ancient blade tighter. It felt warm now, as if it knew something he didn't. A low rumble rolled through the trees. Deeper than the jaguar's growl, slower, more powerful. The panther stopped. Every muscle in its body went still. Its ears twitched toward the sound. Daniel stepped up beside it. And there, through the mist, he saw movement. Orange, black, the stripes shifting like living fire. The tiger emerged from the shadows. Not a cub now, the same cub he had seen earlier. But bigger, stronger, grown into a predator with eyes, like molten gold, for a heartbeat. No one moved. Tiger, panther, human, a triangle of stillness in the green silence. Then the tiger growled. Not a warning, a claim. The panther's lips curled back. The sound it made was low, dangerous, and ancient, the kind of sound that made Daniel's bones feel cold. The tiger stepped forward, each paw silent despite its size. It wasn't rushing, it was choosing. Daniel's chest tightened. They weren't fighting over him, they were fighting over something else. He glanced down at the blade. It hummed faintly in his hand. For the first time, Daniel realized. This was the thing they both wanted. The first strike was so fast. Daniel barely saw it. The tiger lunged. The panther dodged, claws tearing through vines. They slammed into each other, a blur of black and orange, teeth flashing, snarls ripping. Through the air, Daniel stumbled back as the fight tore around him, massive bodies crashing into trees, breaking branches like twigs. The ground shook with each hit. The panther struck low, trying to knock the tiger off balance. The tiger countered with a swipe that split bark like paper. Daniel's heart pounded. He could run, he could leave them to fight. But he knew what. What happened if he left? The jungle wasn't just home to them, it was ruled by them. If one fell, the balance might break. The tiger pinned the panther, teeth near its throat. The panther kicked free, rolling back to its feet. Chest heaving, they circled each other now, slower eyes locked. Daniel stepped forward. The blade felt heavier. The carvings on its surface seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. He didn't know why. But deep inside, he knew this fight had to end now, or neither would survive. He shouted. The sound sharp and human, cutting through the snarls. Both predators froze, eyes snapping toward him. The jungle seemed to hold its breath again. Daniel lowered the blade between them, not threatening, not giving, just showing it. The tiger's ears flattened. The panther's tail lashed once. And then, slowly, they both stepped closer. Daniel's knees shook, but he didn't move. The tiger stopped just close enough for him to smell its breath hot and wild. The panther's head lowered until its nose almost touched the blade. For a moment, all three stood in stillness. Then the panther backed away first. The tiger followed, not in defeat, but in understanding. Daniel exhaled, not realizing he had been holding his breath. The fight wasn't over. But for now, they had chosen not to finish it. Somewhere deep in the jungle, a drumbeat of distant thunder rolled in. The real storm was coming. The last step out of the green Abista jungle had changed. It wasn't just Daniel's imagination. The air felt heavier, the leaves darker, the ground softer beneath his boots, like the jungle itself was breathing. Slower, watching, waiting. The panther moved on his left, tiger on his right. Neither attacked, neither fled. They were guiding him. Daniel's hand tightened on the ancient blade. Its hum had become steady now, not wild like before, but calm, deep, almost like a heartbeat matching his own. The path they walked wasn't one he had seen before. It was narrower, tighter. The vines hung like curtains, and each one slid away as he passed. As if they knew he was supposed to be there, they came to a clearing. In the middle stood a stone pedestal, cracked with age, covered in moss. The symbols carved into it were the same as those on the blade. He stepped forward slowly. The panther stopped at the edge of the clearing. The tiger, too, neither crossed the invisible line. Daniel looked at them both. Their eyes met his, and in them he saw no hunger, no threat, only expectation. He stepped to the pedestal and lifted the blade. The carvings began to glow faint gold, matching the faint light in the symbols on the stone. The jungle grew silent. Not the dangerous silence, a peaceful silence. When the blade touched the pedestal, light erupted, not blinding, but warm. Pouring over the clearing like sunlight after rain, images flickered in Daniel's mind. Ancient hunters, the first guardians of the jungle too. Great beasts keeping balance between life and death, predator and prey. The panther and tiger weren't enemies, they were opposites. And they needed the blade to restore what had been lost. The light faded, Daniel blinked, and the blade was gone. Only the pedestal remained, its carvings now still. The panther turned, disappearing into the shadows without a sound. The tiger followed, vanishing into the trees. Daniel stood there alone. But the jungle no longer felt hostile, alive, in a different way. Somewhere in the distance, a bird sang. The first sound of peace he had heard since the crash. He found his way back to the river. The water looked clearer now, the fog thinner, shape appeared in the sky, the sound of a rescue helicopter cutting through the quiet. He smiled faintly. He had been lost here. But he was leaving changed, as the helicopter lifted him above the green canopy. Daniel looked down one last time. Two shapes moved far below, one black, one orange and striped, walking side by side into the endless jungle. He knew then, the jungle would be safe, and so would he. The end.